This is Broad Radio. For you, by you. Broad Radio. Here for more.
Good morning and welcome to Broad Radio. I'm Jo Stanley and my co-host today is the incredible and the very flexible Kerri Sackville. Good morning, Kez.
And the very rested Kerri Sackville, who's come back recently from an overseas holiday.
I'm so excited.
Got me at a good time.
Oh, mate, I followed your holiday vicariously and I will ask you about that very much in just a moment. But firstly, I need to acknowledge a couple of things. We were to be joined today with co-host Hana Assafiri, who's not been able to join us. She's had an emergency in her family. So we're thinking of you, Hana, sending lots of love. We were also to have as our headline guest this morning, Nadine Garner, who's not been able to join us because she herself has had some personal things going on and had to go to Sydney. We've got our producers at home sick. I've got Ro over there running the desk she's fully masked up because she's woken up with a cough. What is happening in the world, Kez?
Oh, it's something is definitely in the air, and everybody I've spoken to today, and there's been a few, has had a terrible night's sleep, and everybody's having issues in some area of their life. I don't know much about astrology or the moon, but maybe there's some evil wind or the moon is in some weird phase. I don't know. It's a very odd day.
It is an odd day. I think though too, women, I don't know, we carry so much that the slightest, if one thing falls over, then the dominoes kind of tends to reach out beyond, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah. I always say I feel like I am very finely calibrated and it takes just something very small to throw me off. And I think the thing is that we're not just carrying our own schedules and our own needs and issues and problems in our head. We're also carrying the needs and issues and schedules and problems of our family members. And, you know, for anyone in the sandwich generation like I am, it's also my 3 kids and my parents at the moment. So there's literally 5 other people in my head all the time. And I'm checking in with all of them every day. And if any one of them is having a wobbly day or something is up, then that affects my day as well. And I think that's the case for most women. We're just juggling so much and we're carrying so much in our brains and I guess in our hearts as well.
It's true. And it also, even with your girlfriends, when you have girlfriends who are going through a bit of a tricky time and you might text each other throughout the day, checking in, hope you're going okay. The worst part about that is, you can't remove that pain from them and you feel like, oh God, I wish this text feels so shallow. It feels so useless in a lot of ways. So we kind of carry that as well, don't we?
Oh, completely. And I've got friends, I was experienced a Zoom wedding on Sunday, which was just amazing because this particular friend, has had quite a difficult run and has now met, the man of her dreams and got married, and it was overseas, so I had to watch by Zoom. But, after kind of supporting her or trying to be there for her and experiencing her pain, like I have other friends, and then to have that joy, I guess that's the flip side of it. It was really wonderful and really uplifting. And we feel other people's pain. I mean, that's what makes you a decent and empathic person, I guess, but it's also a lot. And it means that our happiness is never purely about ourselves. It's about other people in our lives. And, the saying, you're only as happy as your unhappiest child, but you can also really only be as happy as the other people in your life. And when they're having a rough time, of course it affects you.
That's a really beautiful way of looking at it. Well, if you're joining us live on Facebook or YouTube or Twitch or however you're joining in, we would love to hear from you, how your days are going. If you've got something you'd like to unload, we're here.
We are.
We are. The way of the world today. Very happy to have you. Apparently there's a full moon coming on Saturday. Does that mean? Oh. That's according to Stacey.
Is that good or bad? I don't really know. Is that going to make things worse? Do I finally get a good sleep on Saturday?
Bracey, aren't we going to be out howling at the moon? I don't know.
But that's every night, Jo.
Yeah, that's
constantly
right.
out howling. As long as it's before 9 o'clock, because then I've got to go to sleep.
That's right.
I do an early howl.
Yeah, Yes. If you would like to catch up on any of our other episodes, there are so many great conversations on Broad Radio On The Go, which is our podcast, wherever you get your podcasts. Now, Kerri, you did just share with us that you have been overseas, and I did follow your travels. Was it South Africa?
It was South Africa. There I am in South Africa. It was amazing. I mean, I had never thought to go to South Africa, but I went with my partner and I met his family, which was really special. In a good way, genuinely an amazing experience. And South Africa is an incredible country. It's very beautiful. It obviously has a very troubled history and still a lot of ongoing problems. But it was a truly incredible experience. I have to say, though, that one of the most special things about my trip was the time difference, because South Africa is 8 hours behind us here in Australia. And so what would happen, I would wake up in the morning, I would check in with all my kids, I'd check in with my parents, deal with any issues that were going on, make sure that they were sorted. I've still got a 14-year-old, so there was a lot of organisation to do just to be able to leave.
Just basketball
and food
training.
In the freezer, and exactly, and who's going to be looking after her.
Yeah.
But then every day in South Africa at about 2 p.m. my time, it was 10 p.m. back home, which meant that everybody was home. Everybody was kind of done with their issues for the day and was going off to bed. And after that, once they were all asleep, I felt freer than I have felt in living memory.
Amazing. Because
I was truly free and alone. I could just worry about my partner and myself. Because even when you're traveling in Australia, if you're traveling interstate, you're on the same timeline, you're still checking in, people can still call you. But those hours for me from 2 p.m. till bedtime was like I didn't have children, I didn't have a family.
Did you feel just incredibly light? Like physically lighter?
Physically light. Honestly, I would look at the clock and I would check in with everybody. Oh, there I am on the plane. And that was the other thing. I managed to get an upgrade, which was
a miracle.
Quite spectacular. It was miraculous. There I am in my Qantas pajamas. And I know everybody has had so many problems with Qantas. And I have to say my experience was amazing because I was lucky enough to get upgraded. And I literally, on the way there, had a little cry of gratitude. Because that's the other thing about being in the air. You are completely cut off from all the problems on the ground. And even if you're not upgraded, just to be there and to be uncontactable for about 12 to 14 hours is a freedom in itself, I have to say.
So in that time, so 2 p.m., you're suddenly free. Was there an opportunity to explore parts of yourself that perhaps you had forgotten?
Yeah, I think I'm so used to, as we were talking about before, I'm so used to juggling in a physical sense, but just in my head, the needs and desires and issues of everybody else in my life. And to only think about myself for, that period of time from about 2 till 10, 11 at night was unbelievably liberating. And it sort of it helped me to see how much I enjoy certain things that I guess I haven't really had the experience to enjoy for a long time. Just being able to take my time to be in different places, to sit in and I guess absorb a different environment, talking to different people. I, for example, thought that I didn't like long car trips because I guess I've taken long car trips before with kids and I adore my kids, but it's always, it's like, are we there yet? Are we there yet? Can we stop?
It's sheer hell. A long car trip with children. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
No, thank you.
Yeah. And so I'd said to my partner, I'm really not interested in doing a long car trip. And we ended up, driving a couple of times for about 6 or 7 hours. And I loved it because I could just sit back. We were chatting, we were listening to the radio, listening to podcasts, and just taking in the environment, being free to sit in the car and look at the vast expanse of the land was amazing. I think it really was, special.
Well, when they say to women, it's all about self-care now, and people love this concept of work-life balance, and don't forget self-care is not selfish, and all this this narrative, which I think is really important to have, but it's overlooking something really fundamental in that, A, most of us have forgotten what we love to do because we haven't done it in a long time. And B, even if I was to say to my family, right, don't speak to me, don't talk to me for an hour, this is my self-care time, it never is a time at which I have free of whatever might I have to return to within an hour, and also going, well, I hope when I go back, the clothes have been put on the line. And I hope when I go back from this hour that I don't have to then turn around and cook dinner or whatever it might be. Like, you're not ever actually able to self-care for an hour or whatever.
You're not,
the time
because
is.
It's the whole concept of actually switching off from other people and being able to focus on yourself. And the only reason I could do that at 2 p.m. in South Africa was because I knew that everybody in my life was at home asleep. Because here I can say I'm going to take an hour for myself, but I also know that any of my 3 kids could call at any time. My parents could call at any time. Any friend could call. There's so much that is going on, and it requires quite a like almost mental gymnastics to be able to say, I'm not going to think about that. I'm just going to think about myself for this next hour. And it's almost artificial. Because what you're doing is saying, I'm just going to refuse I'm going to try not to remember that I have all these responsibilities and all these children and things to do. And I'm going to hope that nobody contacts me. So this was truly a moment, it was purely the time difference, a moment of genuine freedom where I knew I would not be contacted unless, God forbid, something happened in the middle of the night, which it didn't.
I think
it's so rare.
What we need is to run interference for our friends and those who need to have that hour. It's like, okay, you go and do your hour, and for the whole time you're there, I'm going to be here, keeping guard. No phone calls.
And I promise you will not be contacted.
You will not. I don't know if that's possible, but anyway, well, I love that you did that, and I also love that you have a natural gift for finding photos, or getting your photo in front of signage that is absolutely filthy, or at least have some kind of double entendre.
There's me. The actual name of the town is Hermanus, but I just couldn't resist that. And believe it or not, the Cum Bookshop. Oh yes, my favourite theatre. I call it the Labia Theatre. I was assured it was actually Labia.
Okay.
Cum Books, believe it or not, is a Christian bookshop.
Oh, geez, they haven't thought that through.
They really haven't.
Oh, I love that so much. Oh, look, Kerri, I'm so glad that you've had that time, and I'm glad you're back to be here on Broad Radio today. Let's get to our first guest. I have to tell you that I was at my dinner table last night with my 2 family members, my husband and my daughter. And because this came to me, was delivered in my house today. It is yesterday. It's called Coo-Wee. It is an incredible startup from a woman, Australian woman, incontinence device, right? Anyway, it got delivered and it was sitting on our big dining table where we eat dinner on one side, and then I work on the other side.
And you have all your work and everything on the other side, yeah.
So my husband reaches over, he goes, "What's this?" And he pulls out these little devices. And my daughter, who's 13, the 3 of us sat around eating our lamb chops, talking about how might these work and what a brilliant thing it is. Firstly, I would like to acknowledge that 10 years ago, I don't think many families would sit around, husband, daughter and wife, mother, father, daughter, talking about these sorts of things. But that's the way of the world now, which I just love. But let's talk to the female founder, who I love. I love supporting female founders, who has come up with Coo-Wee, this incredible incontinence device. Hi there, Sara Clappers. Hi.
Hi, Jo. Hi, Kerri. How are you? Thanks for having me on.
Hello.
Sara, you have created this business and this incredible little device here, this amazing thing, and I would love to know what led you to come up with Coo-Wee.
Well, I play basketball. I'll go back. It was probably before I turned 40 that I was very active, actually, playing basketball and doing boot camps. A lot of my friends were very active, and basically I had to accept that I was struggling with incontinence quite significantly to the point where I was having some embarrassing moments. And I went looking for something that wasn't a pad, a large pad, and it didn't exist. So the options just weren't there. And look, before that, I actually had a bit of a light bulb moment when I was playing a game. obviously we can talk about this here, but I actually had my period at the time, and in managing my period, I noticed that during that time I didn't leak as much. Still leaked, but not as much. And it got me thinking that just the fact that the space inside your vagina was filled up put a little bit more pressure on that inside wall where your urethra is, and basically it kind of slowed down the flow. So I came to my husband and said, I've got an idea. Well, I've recognized this situation. I think if there was something else that was just better, obviously it's not for periods, something for incontinence, that you could manage as you need it. Because, I really didn't have incontinence other than when I was playing sport. When you play basketball, it's a pretty rough game. So, I play pretty hard, I will say. So I just needed, and honestly, by then my game, I was at the point where I was going, I think I'm going to have to let it go. I'm nearly 40, maybe I've had my run, it's time to start doing less impact. Maybe I need to do yoga or Pilates or something else. But I just didn't want to give it up. I love it. And so that led me to sort of, look, I'm always talking to my girlfriends. We've just got that relationship where we can chat about this stuff. I had some actually really embarrassing things, which I probably won't share today. But anyway, just talking to my girlfriends, and they said, yep, I'm the same, and I just kept hearing it. So I started to draw. I drew what you're holding in your hand, this little teepee witch's hat looking thing. And well, actually the first one didn't look like this. It evolved to this. We had some prototypes made, and I handed them out to my girlfriends, and we started trialing them. And with a few adjustments, this is what we landed on. Well, this is what I landed on.
It looks a lot like a menstrual cup. Does it work the same way? Do you use it in the same way as a menstrual cup, and can you use it at the same time as you have your period?
Look, we don't advise it because it's not designed to hold liquid.
Right.
It doesn't hold urine. It doesn't hold wee. Look, you could use it for a time. We don't advise it during your sport. It is designed to pretty much just manage your incontinence. So, yeah.
But you use it the same way? It's kind of
you can use it the same way. So you insert it in the same way, but these rings are a lot more reinforced, you might say, to push outwards. So you fold it in a U shape, you insert it, and the rings sort of open up and apply that pressure in the right place. It acts like a sports bra for your bladder, in a sense.
Wow.
Putting the support up underneath. Yeah. So,
so
the visual.
Is this the first of its kind in the market?
It's the first that looks this friendly.
It's very friendly. My daughter loves it.
Oh, it's cute.
Yeah,
it's cute and colourful.
Yeah. The others are, I guess, the ones that I found aren't promoted in a sense for incontinence, but more for prolapse, for women who've got the issue of prolapse. They're not. Look, there are some that are directed, but they're you can look them up. They're quite invasive looking. I wasn't prepared to necessarily go down that road. Although I knew I had a problem, I really didn't know how significant it was. And I just, going and knowing that if I left the house without putting on a pad, and then I'd have to, run to the supermarket and get something, or the pads are all sort of geared to a much older person than I was. And yeah, I guess I was starting to think, surely I'm not the only one. There needs to be something that is directed at us, you know.
Sarah, you're not the only one. I can tell you that. Like, I just hear anecdotally, it's very, very common and at all ages. But it's something that's just not spoken about. It's one of these, it's like menopause. It's like now we are talking about, you know, menstruation periods, and we've got young women like my daughter, 13 and up. They'll talk about this stuff to anyone. Whereas our generation just we just never did it, did we?
No, we just didn't. And I think that's where, you know, the stigma comes in. And it is embarrassing. It's an overhang, I suppose, from a much more conservative generation. You know, I know my mum would never have talked about these things. I barely got sex education about, you know, so, you know, we just didn't talk about it. So, and look, my tribe of girlfriends, we have that kind of relationship where we are talking about it. And there just needs to be more awareness around it, for sure. You know, the situation with Jana Pittman, you know, on SAS, you know, that was just like, oh my goodness, you know, she's actually said it, you know, on TV, you know, we're talking about it. So the conversations just need to be there.
How have most of your friends reacted to this and to the other people that you've talked about? Is this something that you feel that people are thrilled to have a chance to discuss? Because I'm thrilled that you're getting this out there.
Yes, my best friend of many, many years, we became friends when we were 10 years old. She's had 3 kids, and she'd be much better at this than me, by the way. She loves it. But she's more than happy to talk about it, and she's thrilled that it exists. And she was my main go-to for, you know, here, try this one, this one's stronger, try this one now. And, you know, just figuring out you know, the best one for her. And she has this particular hill that she goes down when she gets her morning off from her 3 girls at Westfolds Park, and she said, I could never go down this one particular hill, and that was the hill that she wanted to always trial it on. And when she finally said to me, I can go down the hill and I don't leak, so, and I'm not wearing a giant pad, so it was it's been great for her and my other girlfriends as well. They're thrilled to see it happening.
That is just amazing. You know, and we're hearing on social media today, coughing, sneezing, laughing, all these things that are about the joy of life. I mean, you know, all the things, your basketball, things that are stolen from us just due to the wear and tear of our poor, tired old female bodies.
Women start, you know, they just start to, you know, what they do. And I mean, we're not old people. We shouldn't have to be, you know, changing the things we love just because of this problem. You know, there is an easier way, and
it's wonderful. Janet says you will help so many people, and it's absolutely true. As a female founder, have you been looking for investment, or what's your journey here?
It's bar 5%, I suppose. We've bootstrapped the whole way. It's been a journey. Obviously, the TGA process is something we knew nothing about. You know, once I had the idea, we had to sort of go through those feelings of, well, okay, we've got something, we know it works, where do we go now? And we knew there was, you know, obviously it's a medical device. We started to explore all that. Attribute my husband to that side of things because, you know, my role is to look after my 2 teenagers. You know, through COVID, it was not easy, but we had to surround ourselves with some, you know, people that have spent way longer in school than myself to help us get this to where it had to go to then see the light of day. So yeah, it's been a long journey, and often we might be on a path and we'd be left going, we don't know if this is the right road or these are the right people to help us get to the next step. And we hit some dead end roads and we had to back up, and also, you know, you're spending your own money along the way. So you become more and more committed to the cause. But I think, you know, I'm really happy with the final product.
It's amazing. And is it available to purchase now?
Online.
Online.
Yes.
Yeah.
So yes, through the shop. Yep.
Well, I just love it. And your description of your startup journey, let me assure you, is everyone's experience of being a startup founder. So I want you to feel great faith in your idea because it's amazing. And I know it at times feels like a very lonely, hard path being a startup founder, but I really want to energize you and tell you that please keep going. That's all I can say.
Thank you.
Going.
Oh yeah, and I'm hopping online, and I can tell you, nearly everybody I know, nearly every woman I know is going to want to get one of these. It's amazing, and it looks great, and the logo's great, and you're an inventor, which is amazing.
Yeah,
It's amazing.
Yeah, I think I'm definitely one of those people that suffers with the imposter syndrome. Like it doesn't, that all that stuff hasn't really sort of settled into, I just sort of was wanting to fix something for myself when I realized that so many others, because the 5 years have been an education as well, like, educating myself on and talking to, more than just my circle, but, understanding the problem and recognizing that it is actually very different for everybody. I've spoken to women who actually didn't even have incontinence after their children, but then struggled with it as they reached menopause. So here I am thinking, well, maybe it's just something you have after you have kids, but no, like there's so many women experience it differently. So yeah, it's been an education as well. So.
Well, thank you
and
so
how
much.
unfair is it what we have to go through as women when we age? Why?
It's horrendous.
Why do
it's
we
not
need to
fair.
have all this?
It's just not fair. And, the whole pad thing is, I know there's the leak undies now that's becoming personally, I wanted a more modern solution to this situation. And as soon as you feel that feeling of, I've just leaked, your whole demeanor will change, you'd manage your actions differently. My whole game of basketball was just subdued. I wouldn't go after the ball. I wouldn't chase. I wouldn't stop. I wouldn't, you change everything to accommodate this problem. So yeah, it's not fair. It's just, there has to be more options. So
well, I celebrate you being the most fierce basketballer possible now that you've invented this. It's wonderful.
I don't hold back.
Good.
Look, I'm a lot more subdued than I would have been in my younger years. I don't, like sheep stations are on the line anymore, but it's fun. Yeah,
Okay.
it's the best way to get out my frustrations of the week, you might say.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, Sarah. I can't wait to tell the world about Coo-Wee. It's incredible, and congratulations.
Oh, thanks, Joe. Thanks, Kerri. Thanks for having me on Broad Radio.
Pleasure.
Thank you.
Australians know that sun exposure can cause skin cancer, but dermatologists also know that it can cause wrinkles, pigmentation and age spots. That's why you need sunscreen every day. Ask your Chemist Warehouse pharmacist which sunscreen is right for your skin.
Broad Radio. Talking inspo we love, info we need, and sharing more of us. Watch and listen live every Tuesday 9 a.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Savings Time at broadradio.com.au or find us on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube and LinkedIn at Broad Radio Oz. Talk to us live. Call on 1300 8 Broad. Catch up on demand anytime, anywhere, every time, everywhere. On the train, we'll be here. 2 a.m. existential crisis, we've got you covered. Broad Radio, here for more.
Well, Kerri, some people end up changing the world by accident because they see a need, such as beautiful Sarah, who we just had on the show. Or some people are just so driven to change the world because she cannot stand the state of it. And so I I'm very thrilled to welcome to the show. Again, we've had her in the past and I love her dearly. She is an agitator for social change and a legendary restaurateur in Melbourne, Hana Assafiri. Hi there, Hana.
Hello, thank you so much for having me. And I'm so glad Broad Radio continues.
Oh, darling, it's been maybe a year since you last joined us. So, yeah, we evolve and so do you. You have an event in Melbourne this week, which actually is sold out. So this is not a plug, but it was just an opportunity to have you join us to talk about, for me, I love what you bring around how conversation over food can change the world. Why food and conversation?
Well, look, this isn't new. I think conversation salons are a thing of the 16th, 17th and 18th century. Back across Europe, Italy, they were places and spaces which women hosted to inspire, find meaning of life, exchange ideas. And I think they've kind of lost, along the way over the years, we've either lost interest or meaning or the need for them. And we're simply reinventing what has traditionally been an unconventional approach to women's social engagement. And food and where people congregate, I think, is an extraordinary opportunity to begin to extend building from the ground up across our differences and invite people to consider not only stimulating their appetite and satiating their appetite for nourishment and food, but certainly their appetite, hopefully, for a better world. And the two, for me, the synergy between those opportunities and people's curiosity in and around where they come together communally are an amazing opportunity for us to take stock and not wait for governments and politicians to fix the mess that we're in, but rather that we do.
So Hana, what's the structure of the event? Is there a theme? Is there an opportunity for people to get up and speak spontaneously? Is it planned speakers? How does it work?
So the thinking with the Conversation Salon is that we find some of the most inspirational women on any given topic to inspire a room. The theme is conversational, to re-engage the art of conversation. We don't know how to have conversations anymore. We simply are very divided. We're very polarized around a whole host of issues. This is an opportunity for us to suspend the world that we know and allow ourselves to imagine a world where plurality, diversity, humanity and compassion are possible, and to journey into that space through some of the most inspirational presenters, performers, spoken word, song. It doesn't matter how we engage people to take us on that journey. And for me, I try and locate some of the most marginalised and inspirational voices and give them front and centre platform to then have an honest, open, conversation style evening. So it's not an academic setting, it's not speaking at people, it is largely participatory and hopefully a journey where we can all walk away feeling a bit more inspired.
When you talk about conversation, I think we sometimes forget that half of a conversation is listening. How good are we at listening these days?
I don't think we are. I think we have been conditioned and taught, certainly since the advent of social media and sound bites and populist discourse, that we simply want to get our version in. We can't tolerate dissent. We can't tolerate disagreement much. We're taught more and more that it's a very polarized and divided way of communicating. So I do think we've lost the art of sitting with discomfort, listening to opinions and perspectives and experiences that are different to our own. And we find ourselves gravitating more towards like-minded people, people who reaffirm our thinking rather than those who potentially challenge, as though we've got something to lose if we open ourselves up to considering a different possibility.
Do you have any sort of tips for people? Because I know that I can get really defensive when I'm talking to someone who has ideas very different to mine. And I think it's exactly what Jo was saying. I find myself not listening and find myself wanting to argue and kind of composing what I want to say instead of hearing them. Do you have like tips for us as to how we can, I guess, engage with people when we do feel that kind of prickly sense of, I don't want to hear what they have to say?
Look, I think for someone like me, our normal has been existing on the margins and trying to build communities. And whether that margin is within our family, because I was always very different, unconventional, didn't aspire to be the married with children, wear the high heels, put the makeup on, all that sort of stuff. And then certainly in society, I don't adhere to what the construct or definition of a woman is. And on top of that, I'm a Muslim woman who has faith, but I don't have religion. And so there's a whole host of circumstances which for me has meant, in order to engage people, I've had to necessarily build the capacity to suspend what I think and feel, try and listen, and build the ability to be the bridge so that we can come together and understand that diversity of view. If I wanted to be afforded dignity and respect, I need to afford it to others, no matter how difficult what it is that they've got to say. And I think training over the years, we've been lucky in that sense, existing in a world that has been somewhat hostile to difference, has given us a lot of opportunity and training to be able to genuinely listen to others, in the hope that underneath it all, I start from the premise that people are decent and their views are often founded on fear, misinformation, and a lack of opportunity to know better. So hopefully we peel away the layers, no matter how ignorance presents itself, and we can find and connect back up with our humanity.
It's interesting. I mean, I love everything you say there. And it sort of belies this assumption that if you're in a space where it's women talking to women, that you're preaching to the choir, because you're not. Of course, there are many diverse opinions and experiences within a room full of women. But at times, do you get frustrated that you would like men to be a part of that conversation too?
This is not a women's only event. This is, in fact, the opposite of that. This event is for the community, and it's trying to reinterpret what it means to be a woman in this day and age. And also to look at the experiences, the diverse experiences of women, and hopefully how do we define and understand the freedom that we are all seeking as women? How do we let go of the shackles which are the conventions which keep us subjugated? How do we imagine what women's freedom really looks like, where we're not adhering to needing the legitimacy of, society, social conventions? And I think both men and women have an extraordinary role to create that sort of world. And the men as allies in these conversations is the only way forward. So whilst our presenters, we centre front and centre the most progressive of women, the audience or the community, if you like, are people who aspire and resonate with a vision of a world that is more humane and more compassionate. And we absolutely invite men, women, non-gender binary, doesn't matter who you are, in the quest that we can create that world that is more open and plural.
So I don't want to kind of reduce your message to like one soundbite, but if obviously we can't all come to your talk. I'm in Sydney, unfortunately, because I would have loved to go to the event. But if there was one thing you could say to men and women to help us all to be, I guess, better people, to make that change, to be better listeners, what would you say? Like, what's something that we can take away and do, like, right now to be better?
When you lift women and girls, the entire society progresses. Men's freedom is found in women's liberation. Men need to see themselves in the freedom of women. That only then will our societies genuinely arrive at a place that is harmonious, peaceful, plural, and can afford everybody the dignity, respect, and the opportunity to be the best version of themselves.
I mean, you talk about freedom and what it looks like. It's largely for everyone, and I say this all the time about patriarchy in general, because I am surrounded by men who have not benefited from the patriarchy. They've been bullied by that alpha male. They have been so deeply affected by it, and it's not even toxic masculinity. It's just this sense that they themselves have really struggled to know who they are. And isn't that what we hope for as far as equality is concerned, that each and every individual, no matter how you identify, can be who you are?
Look, absolutely. I often, I guess, I find it difficult when feminism, certainly the past streams of feminism, I've found them divisive. They don't engage and build that bridge of engagement with men, and we lump all men in the category of benefactors of misogyny, patriarchy, and responsible for violence against women. Now, whilst we absolutely live in global systems which are profoundly built on subjugating women, no doubt, at a societal level and then at an individual level, the individual experience definitely differs. It is not men's fault that they are born men. And not all men coerce and bully and violate women. Men need to have spaces and platforms where they can be allies to the empowerment of women. And I guess in doing so, we can see that there's a void at the moment. There aren't those spaces to engage both men and women who resonate with a vision of a better world. The only thing I would say is the responsibility in terms of arriving at that place of advocacy for good men requires that not just in the company of women, for example, that they uphold systems of equity and respect, but also in the company when they are with men, that they call out bad behaviour, that these are some of the things that enable and make men better allies to women and help cultural change. Instead of just saying, well, that's just blokey behaviour. Nothing is just blokey behaviour. Nothing is just women's behaviour. These are products of a social conditioning which, and I just want to jump a little bit back to earlier, your guest, Sarah, who was talking about almost shame, the shame that comes with women's bodies and what happens to women, and whether it's post-childbirth or menopause or whatever it is. Shame is that glue that keeps society so profoundly unequal, and it is shifting that shame off women's bodies, and both men and women have a responsibility in that. So when we talk about periods, when we talk about menopause, when we talk about leaking, if these were male afflictions, we'd be not only talking about them, we would put so much money into research and study that we would have solutions to them by yesterday.
Yeah.
So removing that stigma is not just, the onus is not just on women. It is on women and good men who choose to be our allies in this journey. And to finish, sometimes women internalise misogyny so much so that they are the enemy, if you like, of progress and change, that they are so invested in upholding the social inequality So for me, it's not about men versus women. It is about creating a vision of a world where everybody can potentially thrive.
Hana, when you look at the kind of the younger generation, there's been a lot in the media in Sydney recently about young men, boys behaving badly at certain schools, and we still see kind of misogyny and going on in the younger generation. Do you feel positive or kind of negative when you're looking at the younger generation? Do you feel that we're changing and moving in the right direction, or there's still a long way to go?
Both. I do think that at the moment, society's so profoundly changed since the advent of social media, where people's realities are reinforced by these notions of existing in these silos, and their truth is had in that way. The youth and the young are certainly the solutions to this mess. And simultaneously, they require in us allies, those of us who have forged this pathway, who've committed to human rights and social justice across causes, that we can learn and partner up with them, and we can offer them places and spaces in the hope that they see themselves in these causes. Misogyny and patriarchy, for lack of a better word, and all these jargons, I think what is happening in the world at the moment is that we have never been so connected, that somebody in Zimbabwe can see what's happening in the US, that places and spaces that you never knew existed on a map are so connected. Minorities are pushing at conventions and demanding their rights. Women are demanding that systems reform and change. And I think with that, it's an opportunity for the system to reinvent itself and come back to reimagining how do we create more equitable, fairer, just systems. Instead, sadly, what we've seen over the last probably 5 years or so, instead of utilising that opportunity, we have doubled down. And now we're repealing some of the gains that women have made over the years. And young boys are learning from that conversation, that now we're having a conversation about abortion again. And yes, it may be in the US. We certainly follow suit. These are global trends in a globally connected world where we talk about abortion rights, we talk about women's rights over their bodies. So I think we have an opportunity to either progress and incorporate women's involvement to enrich society so that we can celebrate women's contribution, and not see women's contribution as a problem that needs fixing, like childcare or parental leave. These aren't women's problems, these are societal issues. Or recognise that where we are re-cementing, and I know these are kind of complex concepts, but it seems to me that we are re-cementing the social order in electing people like Donald Trump, Boris Johnson, Bolsonaro, Scott Morrison, all these men who simply, in their implicit system of belief, is that women and minorities belong in a certain place in society and the social order needs to be maintained. Now, men and boys, young boys, listen to that doublespeak, that when you say, oh yes, we want women, but we reject quotas. We want to have women in our parliament and Labor Party and Liberal Party and whatever, but we reject holding men accountable for bad behaviour and for coercion and bullying. You are giving young men and boys a message. Young men and boys and girls and women and non-binary, we all internalise and interpret what we are seeing and the messages we are being given by our leaders. Yes, it's a breath of fresh air at the moment that we have a government who, at least rhetorically and symbolically, is saying, hey, we want things to be a bit better for women. Are they better? No. They're certainly nowhere near where they need to be. Are they better than they were 50 years ago? Yes, no, they're kind of different. And I think our measure should not be our worst attributes. Our measure should be the possibility of our best.
Well, the conversation continues, and it's one of the things that you're so wonderful at. I am so grateful to you, Hana, for all the work that you continue to do, and
Thank you.
we maintain the conversation as we do the rage. That goes hand in hand.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, can I just talk about one initiative? This is it's a new initiative, and it's an organisation called Women Can. And I just want to bring it up because it's an opportunity for any woman, anyone who identifies as woman, who finds themselves on the margins of society at a disadvantage and or a crisis. This is an opportunity to circuit break that and throughput them into employment, earn and learn, because often some of the greatest barriers to women's participation is where they compete in putting food on the table. You can't upskill them if they have to pay for learning. So there's a new program, an initiative called Women Can Australia, that is putting women in non-traditional women's vocations, from carpentry, plumbing, electricians, and they earn while they learn. They do pre-apprenticeship courses, and if women are interested, please reach out and send an email to contact@womencan.org, and we will be able to immediately find you placement, peer support, and throughput you on a pathway which can genuinely begin to change and contribute to changing some of the conditions of women's employment in traditionally non-women's vocations.
Truly amazing. Womencanaustralia.org is the website. Thanks, Ro, for speedy Googling that over there. She's on to us, my friend Ro over here. Yes, womencanaustralia.org. That is awesome. Hana Assafiri, thank you, as always, for your support of Broad Radio and for joining us this morning.
My absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
Kerri, what a morning we've had.
Wow, it's been a big one.
It has been a big one. And as we farewell, there was one thing I wanted to mention, and that is that the almighty Tracy Grimshaw announced her retirement from A Current Affair last night. Well, at the end of this year.
I can't even imagine the TV screens without Tracy Grimshaw. She really is a living legend, I think. She's been around for a long time.
Yes, she said 17 years she's been on that show. And you think about the interviews that she's done. What a powerful interviewer she is. She is fearless in the questions, and the line of questioning, sometimes it's like subtle, and it's like she's kind of closing in on her prey, just sort of cornering them.
No, she's a powerhouse. And I think that, she came from a time before social media and before, you got that kind of immediate feedback from people. And I think maybe it gave people a chance to be more fearless and to develop a style. I think now, it would be so hard to be in that role where you're constantly getting bombarded then with people saying, oh, that was a shit interview, or why didn't you ask this, or why didn't you ask that? She had to forge her own path. And I think she's amazing. She's fierce, isn't she?
That's an interesting perspective. I think you're right, that she's sort of established herself as so beyond that kind of rhetoric long before we had Twitter, in which people were, tearing people
And I think it
apart.
would be very hard these days if you're starting your career now. You've constantly got that barometer of how you're doing in the eye of the public. Whereas back when Tracy started, it really was a question of forging your career as kind of an individual in the media and developing a reputation. I think everything's changed now. I mean, it's like the difference when I started writing, and the only feedback you would ever get from a column in the newspaper was maybe a letter that was sent in the mail that would get to you 3 weeks later. And by then you've forgotten what you've written. Whereas now you can see immediately how well you're doing or how well you're not doing.
Yes, what people think.
So did you read why she's quitting?
Well, she said last night in her statement that I've decided to finish up. It's been a big decision, and before the gossip websites start, she's right across what you're saying there. Before they start telling you rubbish, I want you to know it's been my decision alone. I've not been shoved out the door by the boys' club because I'm too old. I'm not too old. I'm just a bit tired.
I mean, is there anything more relatable ever written? That's incredible. Aren't we all just a little bit tired?
I'm
Really?
just a bit tired. Oh my gosh, the work. She said basically she's been a shift worker for 26 years because she used to do, before dawn for years on the Today Show, and now she's doing nighttime. So, amazing. She's just a trailblazer, I think, and someone who's really set the tone for women who's followed after her. So, tribute to you, Tracy.
I hope she has a rest. But I have a feeling she'll be back in some capacity. And I also look forward to the memoir. There will have to be a memoir. She has seen some things.
Oh my God.
And she has heard some things, and I would like to know what they are.
Absolutely. Hey, Kerri, Sackville, thanks for co-hosting with me today. I've just absolutely loved having you on the other end of the line.
Such a pleasure. And one day we'll be doing it in the same room.
Oh my God, we will. We'll go on a road show to Sydney.
Brilliant.
You and I will share some time together. Thanks so much, Kerri. And
Brilliant.
of course, next week we'll be back with Broad Radio Tuesday 9 a.m. We'll see you then.
Gotta make some noise.